Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, the Bearded Shaman of Gaming, bringing you reviews at the speed of embargo, or, well, in this case, just a little bit after. So what's today's game? Well, looking at it, you might assume it's a return of the old classic Rampage, except replace the monsters with genital-less giants in big head mode. But it's not. It's Attack on Titan Wings of Freedom from Omega Force for the PS3, PS4, PS Vita, Xbox One, and Windows. Attack on Titan tells the tale of the anime of the same basic name that follows the adventures of a series of young men and women who are enlisted in the Titan fighting forces. From then on out, it's a story about giants eating people, people stealing food, and then giants puking out people. The game has you dashing, dancing, slipping, and sliding through enemies' guards and laying bare the naked napes of necks as you kill the titans that are attacking your city. Now, while the game is in the style of titles like Dynasty Warriors, it eschews thousands of brain-dead troops to trample with one trampling brain-dead titan. So let's see how it does, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Attack on Titan. Night of the Dolls, the Andre the Giant edition, steampunk Spider-Man swinging, and finding out that kneecaps of giants are like gold mines. Graphics are up first. I have to say that though Attack on Titan doesn't do much to change up that original feeling that you're playing Dynasty Warriors number 333 from the onset, it luckily differentiates itself in many ways. The first of which is the destructible terrain, with almost all the buildings in the city being destroyable, and let me tell you, the first time you just got done sending a massive ballless gape-mouthed titan to his grave and his body smashes into the side of a building and it crumbles around you like the carpenters use Ritz crackers instead of 2x4s, it does a really tremendous job reeling you into the world's game view. Also, while the game isn't loaded with troops, the massive sense of scale while fighting some of the larger titans is really impressive, and while nowhere near the cloud-scraping denizens of, let's say, Shadow Colossus, it also has more of them on screen, and despite them all running around like Maggie Grace from the movie Taken, it can be a bit sphincter-clinching when you're down on your health and trying to get just a bit of distance between you and the massive man-eater, and crap is just crumbling all around you. Very cool sense of scale there. Also, the cell shading that they used is just right and covers up some of the issues that this game could have had, and instead does a really good job making you feel like you're playing an anime. However, on both the PS4 and the Xbox One, there are some FPS issues, and while the consoles are locked at 60 FPS and 1080p or 900p respectively, the PC version is luckily... Oh wait, who am I kidding? It's also locked. That's right, because someone hates fun, the PC versions are locked at 60 FPS and 1080p resolution. Now, the 60 FPS might be related to the game engine and matching its physics to its frame rate, which we've seen before, but the resolution lock is almost insidious when it's also connected to that frame rate lock, especially at 60, because a game like this, even on middling hardware, is going to be able to do much more in one of those two areas. Sad, but true. Now, there's no VSync option on the PC as well, and the only way I could get VSync to actually work was to use windowed borderless. The problem there is the game wasn't a fan of that, and I got some stuttering while recording. So, sorry for the occasional screen tearing here in the footage. You can get VSync if you don't use full screen. All in all, though, I have to say the game actually does look pretty damn slick at times, and though the Dynasty Warriors style architecture design, which looks like some clean freak roamed the levels before you play it, removing any spare items, I honestly think that the handling of the characters and their animation and the sense of speed and scale is where the game really shows this wicked worldview. I mean, it's cool things like bouncing into the sky with a three-dimensional movement gear, and it's handled incredibly well, and like some type of steampunk dual-wielding Batman, you're flung forcibly into the air with the ability to suggest in which direction you want to travel. Attack animations on the characters are a highlight, while the giants have a tendency to bibble and bobble like rubber ducks when hit. This is most likely to keep the back of their necks open to attack, as that's how you kill them in the fiction. But in all honesty, sometimes it looks like everyone is made of gummy worms. Here's the thing though. The game is more than the sum of its parts when it comes to its presentation, and altogether the movement, the larger number of both basic and advanced attack skills, and the sense of scale is really great and definitely feels different than the other titles. I mean, come on though, I just wish the typical PC options were here, because though you can do things like adjust anti-aliasing, lighting effects, and a number of others, lack of VSync makes it feel like it's from the Dark Ages, as does the lack of higher resolution, and of course that locked frame rate. As a package, I'd say it's good once you get into it, but a bit sorry on the PC side for support, especially when you're just starting. Sound, music, and voice.
3位警戒しながら展開せよ援護班は中心部の巨人を誘い出し町の外側で各飛行士の対処を優先しろ
まだ殺された町の中心部を制圧しないことには。
いいところに来た。やる。本日をもって訓練兵を卒業する貴様らには3つの壁の強化に努め 各町を守る駐屯兵団、犠牲を覚悟して壁外の巨人領域に挑む調査兵団、そして王の下で民を統制。
And of course, sound is up first, and it's pretty good. Luckily, much of the sound's cribbed from the anime, and you're gonna hear the strange pump and shrill of the harpoons shooting out of their movement gear just like the anime, as well as the different sounds of the titans and, of course, the main characters. Sadly, environmental sounds are almost non-existent, and the worlds can feel barren even while doing things like the expedition mode, which is you riding a horse around a landscape and basically cutting the Achilles tendons of enemies Pet Cemetery style. It's a bit sad, actually. Then again, for the most part, the game is either snicker snacking enemies with your vorpal sword of steampunking +1 or rushing to the next place to do exactly that. So I guess in the end, it's a minimalistic impact. If there's anything I would have really liked, it's a bit more of a trailing and thick sound for the weapons. This is sometimes typical for anime, which goes by a different tonal strategy than games do. It's not terrible, but sometimes you notice that thinness in weapon sounds, especially on repeated attacks. Now, on the other hand, once you get up close in battle, it's actually done well, with the surround sound detailed enough that you can use it to identify where another Titan may be up close, even before the HUD switches to him. That's pretty well done. Music. While surprisingly percussion-heavy in many parts, the game developers have really shown an excellent ability to understand when music shouldn't play. Like, many of the cutscenes are just the characters talking, and it lends a bit of atmosphere to not having the soundtrack booming always in the background. Now, that doesn't mean that when the HUD is getting heavy, the game doesn't drop into hero territory, and again, you have the soaring horns and violins trying to chase them out of the room. Good tracks overall. Voice. So, this has no voice dubbing, so if you don't understand Japanese well, my friends, you are going to be reading a lot. Now, one thing is the subtitles are fairly well done, and following the plot is both easy, but also not weighed down by some of the clumsiness we've seen in the past with anime translations. I hear from native speakers that the voice acting is fine, and I'm going to take their word for that. The only thing I know is this character, Kits, has seen some shit. Just look at it. Gameplay. So, while the game does play like the Dynasty Warriors titles, in its initial setup overall there are a number of differences that I'm going to get into. Now, fairly quickly in the game you're introduced to your movement gear, which is a set of harpoons that shoots out and sticks into anything besides you and your friends, and then flings you into the air like a really clumsy Spider-Man. It's a good movement system though, and while there are times when you're going to find yourself losing connection with the land or slamming into the side of a building like you have some kind of vendetta against cornerstones, in the end, it's workable, and pretty soon you will be using a mixture of your movement system, running, and yes, even horseback to traverse the game world. Because of course, when you think about it, without buildings, the harpoons won't work, so you have to fall back to running or the horse. And the horse, it's not very good, actually. For example, in busy moments, my horse and the other people's horses all decided that playing leapfrog was going to be much more fun than let me ride off, resulting in everyone jockeying for position in a race that I couldn't see the finish line for. Usually running away from them returned the horse to my side, but I can't say I was really happy with that movement system. Now, another difference you have here is a sword system that is actually pretty unique. Due to the resilience of the Titan skin, you need to replace your sword blades as they dull, and you carry a system of blades with you, and you can watch gauges to see if they're too dull and they need replacing. Now, much in the same way that you have gas cylinders for the harpoons. Now, I know a lot of people right now are going, oh my god, it's Attack on Titans, the survival game, but it's not. Luckily, even without upgrades, replacing both supplies was not continually required, and is much less of a survival mechanic and more of a long-term within the same battle mechanic, which I actually highly appreciated because it did break some stuff up. Now, soon you'll be facing off against assorted titans of different sizes, and you're going to learn that your movement system can anchor onto parts of a giant's body, like knees, arms, and head. Sadly, no groins. And you'll quickly be able to latch onto an enemy's arm, burst towards them, pulling your harpoons back, and slice through their appendages, and then bounce back and forth and do it again and again. It's around this time that you're introduced to the patented giant joint treasure chest system, because you find out while fighting them that both their arms and their legs hold all of the items that you need to improve and upgrade your equipment. Now, it's odd, but it's a cool little gameplay mechanic because you can go for the kill instantly or chop off a knee and then gleefully dance around like a child outside of a dying piñata made of a giant bursitis sack, hoping it will shoot out something usable. But in the end, you're killing. And killing here is half the battle, and that brings us to combat. Now, combat is a mixture of good and bad for me. First, even without later amazing double attacks and spinning dervishes of destruction, the game is actually a little bit easy. You basically anchor to a point on a giant's body and wait a bit, then press the attack button. Now, the window for the attack is massive, like get a drink during it, massive, which results in this real lack of connectivity between all of these upgrades and worry about people dying in the story to basically rinsing and repeating the attack button. Now, all the characters have special attacks, and I love all of them. For example, while one character can multi-attack without having to recover, another spins with his sword out and does hellacious damage, while another one doesn't do much damage at all, but can order others around them to fight and do detailed things like attack the limb that he's attacking and aiming for. This not only adds to the strategy of the title, but it actually fits loosely with the anime anime, which I thought was a really cool connection to the fictions. Now, while the combat might be a bit rote when it comes to timing and such, the game does an exemplary job using other things to its benefit when it comes to tactics. For example, one Titan ain't so bad, but get two in a tight street, and if you're not very careful with control and position, one of the Titans will easily grab you from the sky, resulting in a QTE to stay alive. But regardless, even if you live, you will be massively hurt from that attack, and I actually really liked that. Now, where past titles have been all about the many button combos, Attack on Titan is a well-structured treatise on movement mixed with mental awareness. It's a fantastic feeling to flow from the largest giant, his body slide into the ground dead, and flick into the next one, killing them, then hitting the third one right in the obviously jewel-encrusted elbow joint. Admittedly, it is different, but it's really fun. Also, there's an assortment of special items you can collect as you level up, like grenades and cannons and call to arms, or basically everyone and their mother joins you in the fight. Now, one of the best parts of the battle system is something I mentioned a little bit before, which is the ability to team up or control others. Even the most basic of characters can gather a couple around them and tell them to focus on the same enemy, guard them, or spread out. It's awesome to be slicing into an enemy's legs and see another character wheel through the sky like a goddamn Matrix movie and turn a lefty into a righty. That is very cool. That is, of course, if you're playing on the consoles or playing on the PC with the 360 controller. Because control with a 360 controller works fine on the PC, and I soon found myself dashing one way, removing a Titan's leg with a quick slash, and then dashing the other and slicing an arm off. But the keyboard controls are like translating Japanese into Spanish into stupid and then back into English. I mean it. It's got the worst keyboard and mouse setup and feel I think I've ever seen in a game, and the complaints already are tremendous about that in the various different review threads. Also, other controllers on the PC don't seem to be working well with the game. For example, my Xbox One controller had better luck controlling my microwave than it does this, with buttons just flatly not working. Now, I hear some people have got dual shocks to work fine, but sadly, a good number of folks are reporting issues throughout this title when it comes to getting controllers that aren't the 360 to work. Now, the game follows the 10 playable characters through Attack on Titan's story and most of the first season. This both frames the game as an excellent series of engagements, but because it's a game, it also allows for varied gameplay as each character has these particular things that they're good at. But also, it allows for something that I wasn't really expecting, which is numerous story-connected side missions. I loved how the side missions are presented as well within the fiction, with folks shooting smoky flares into the sky when they call for aid. There was something a bit more concrete about that, let's say, than a flashing star on a minimap. And the game's consistent reminder of friends in bad battle positions or folks dying kept the state of urgency high, even if that initial combat timing didn't. Now, as you play, you gain levels in both your character, but also in the regiment itself that you're engaged with, both offering bonuses like extra skills to be used in battle or new weapons that could be made, upgraded, fortified, or sold at the different vendors. That's another thing that actually sort of impressed me with this game. Instead of returning home every single mid-level, and we know some games do this regardless of the heroes being like 500 miles from their home base in the middle of the night, the game actually uses a mixture of home locations as well as temporary spots for the cutscenes that exist in the game world. Now, this doesn't lessen your ability to do things like upgrading or fortifying, but it keeps the game feeling like it's moving forward and like it's existing within the game world. Lastly, we'll talk a little bit about upgrading items, because there's a lot of different factors. For example, weapons have durability and its speed and its length, which does one thing that actually makes the game a tiny bit more difficult, as it does adjust the timing for that main attack, but only a tiny bit. Your movement system and your weapon sheaths can also be upgraded or fortified, giving them bonuses to things like how many sword blades you can carry or how far your harpoons can shoot out. I found some of the upgrades sort of needless due to how the game played and how I didn't find it that difficult, but your mileage is going to vary. I would say this, as a package, the sense of presentation in this game doesn't get as deeply mired into the despair of the series that it's based on, but instead sort of handles the plot and structure of the anime and adds to it with a really incredible amount of gameplay without somehow bogging down too much. Now, the game also has online-only co-op, which right now has some issues as the voice chat can't be disabled. It also has a scout expedition mode, but that is pretty much purely for grinding, which I actually didn't find needed in this game. Again, your mileage is going to vary. Fun factor. Yeah, it's pretty cool. There are times when, even on the hardest difficulty, feeling challenged isn't something that's going to happen to a lot of gamers, but then make a mistake in your planning and you can quickly find the tides changing. The game also drops frames in both console versions, more so with the Xbox One. Even though this is one of the better looking games of this kind as well, that feels a little sinful. Also, of course, the platform with the most options, PC, seems to have the least, and that to me really does need to be fixed. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. This is indeed a wait for a sale. It's $50, and while usually fun, it won't offer the feeling of satisfaction that I think a lot of people would expect for a game of that price, and actually even within this genre. It also has some frame rate issues on the console versions, and really restricts PC gamers a great deal with controller and keyboard issues, and just frankly issues when it comes to getting it to work adequately. For a game like this, I really judge them on how they reflect the anime and how that anime comes into the gameplay in which they present. There's a lot of fun here, there's a solid title, but it has some issues, and I cannot suggest it at full price. And so that's it for me, one more review down. I hope you guys liked it. Stay tuned, I will have a bunch more coverage on Mafia and some other reviews as well in the next couple days. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, maybe check out Twitter and Patreon. If you disliked the video, give it a thumbs down. And you know what? Peace out and enjoy your weekend.